Welcome to Pages of the Multiverse, where every universe has a story. Here, we dive into the hidden corners of Marvel and DC Comics, exploring alternate realities, forgotten timelines, and the countless versions of your favorite heroes and villains. In this video, we will dive into the origin of Spider-Man Noir from Earth-90214 and his quest for revenge. In the 1930s, New York is a city gasping under the weight of the Great Depression. A squad of police officers storms into the Daily Bugle. A call had come in, someone claiming to be J. Jonah Jameson had reported he had been shot. They burst through the door of his office, only to find Jameson in his chair, bleeding out with Spider-Man crouched over him, with a gun in his hand. They tell him to drop his gun and put his hands in the air. Spider-Man tries to explain, but the police didn't want to listen. To avoid a gunfight, Spider-Man used his webbing on the police officers and went crashing out the window and into the cold night. One bullet grazes him, but the rest miss their mark. Some time before, Jameson had sent his top reporter, Ben Urich, out to capture the faces of suffering people, to document the poverty gripping the city. Urich found himself in a tent city, surrounded by the forgotten. There, at the center of the crowd, stood May Parker, delivering a fiery speech. She condemned the corrupt political parties and demanded revolution. Not with violence, but with unity, calling for socialism in a land rigged for the powerful. Her words didn't sit well with everyone. The enforcers, a group of hired muscle, arrived to silence her. When they threatened her, her nephew, Peter Parker, stepped in. He was brave, but no match for Ox, the muscle-bound brute who beat him down without hesitation. Urich intervened, snapping a photo and reminding them that he was untouchable in print. The enforcers backed off, but the message was clear: speak out and you'll pay. Back at the Parker home, which doubled as a soup kitchen, he was angry and tired of being powerless in a city that fed on the weak. May tried to calm him, but Peter burned with questions about Uncle Ben's murder, a crime still unsolved. To wake him up to how the world truly works, Urich took Peter to a secret club, the Black Cat, which was run by the Felicia Hardy from this universe. It was where the city's real rulers came to play. Peter saw among the crowd were corrupt politicians, police captains, and businessmen. And at the center of it all, Norman Osborn enters the club, flanked by Kraven the Hunter, the Vulture, and the enforcer Fancy Dan. In the underworld, Osborn was known only by one name, the Goblin. When Osborn recognized Peter as Ben Parker's nephew, he feigned sympathy. Peter didn't buy it, throwing a drink in his face and nearly getting himself killed. Urich saved him again, pretending Peter was under his protection. Outside, Felicia kicked them out. Urich scolded Peter, but saw something in him. The next day, Urich took Peter to meet J. Jonah Jameson. He gets Peter a job at the Bugle working as Urich's assistant. Jameson assigns them the task of taking photos of the injustice that was spreading like a cancer across the city. But instead of discouraging him, Peter's anger only grew. In a diner, Peter told Urich he believed all roads led back to the Goblin. When he talked about discovering Ben's body being beaten and looked like he had been savaged by wild dogs, Urich grew pale. Later that night, alone in his apartment, Urich sat at his desk. He pulled out a vial of heroin and injected himself. As the high took hold, memories came flooding back, of Ben Parker's murder. He wasn't killed by dogs, but by the Vulture, a cannibal in the Goblin's employment. Urich had seen it happen because he had been working for the Goblin at the time. Days later, they were sent to photograph a burning building. Peter noticed something strange. He saw the enforcer member, Fancy Dan, was in one of the photos. Could the Goblin have ordered the building to be set on fire? Urich brushed it off with a sarcastic remark, but Peter wasn't convinced. That night, Peter visited Urich's apartment, only to find him dazed and high. As Peter inspected the needles, the phone rang. A tip: the Goblin's men would be unloading something at the shipping docks, at 1 a.m. Peter went. He watched from the rafters as Kraven and the enforcers hauled crates. One crate fell, shattering open, revealing ancient relics, and a swarm of spiders. They attacked Fancy Dan, swarming his body and biting him to death. One of them bit Peter. As pain overtook him, He had a vision, a demonic spider promising him power, but only if he used it against evil. He awoke, finding himself wrapped in a cocoon of black webbing. But he noticed that something inside him had changed. He had been given the powers of a spider. In disguise, using his new gifts, Peter burst through the window of Osborn's office and confronted the Goblin's crew. He fought with agility he never knew he had. He took down the enforcers, but as he tried to expose the Goblin, he saw Yurik slipping away and gave chase. On the street, Peter yelled at him, furious to learn how deep Yurik's corruption went. Before Yurik could answer, the Goblin's men opened fire. Peter escaped, and Yurik, filled with guilt, threw the Goblin's money back at him and vowed to walk away. Back in his apartment, Yurik called Jameson, telling him that he has proof of photos and documents tying Osborn to murders, arson, and bribery. Jameson promised to come collect the files. Later, Yurik hears a knock on his door. He opened it, and was shot in the head. Yurik died instantly. His killer turned out to be Jameson, and he makes a call to someone that Yurik was taken care of. Back at home, Peter stitched together a costume using his Uncle Ben's old pilot gear. Peter then gave himself the name Spider-Man, and vows to put an end to not only the Goblin but to the corruption in New York. Peter decided that the best way to start for taking out the Goblin, he needed Yurik's help. He went to Yurik's apartment, but it was too late. The police wrote it off as a drug dispute. Felicia Hardy later found Peter and gave him Yurik's files. She warned him to not take them to the papers, and that he should use them. Now Spider-Man has declared war on the Goblin by attacking some of his operations, which caused the Daily Bugle to write untrue stories about him. Meanwhile, after reading the lies about Spider-Man goes to confront Jameson, only to find him slumped in his chair, bleeding. Before dying, he whispered, "Master of Disguises." The police burst in. Again, Spider-Man fled. Now Spider-Man has been labeled by the city as a killer. In a secret location, Peter goes through Yurik's files and discovers the secrets of the Goblin. That his men were sideshow freaks and performers, like Kraven the Hunter and the Vulture. But he finds another file which contained the information about the Chameleon, who was a master of disguises. Spider-Man breaks into the morgue to examine the body of Jameson and uncovered the truth. The corpse wasn't Jameson. It was in fact the Chameleon, which meant the real Jameson was still alive. At Peter's apartment, May Parker arrives to see Peter. But unknown to her, the Vulture was laying in wait for Peter to arrive. The Vulture leaped down from the ceiling, pinning May to the floor, mocking how her late husband Ben Parker had more meat on him. Spider-Man arrived just in time. Spider-Man tells Vulture to let May go, but the Vulture smirked while holding her by the neck, asking him is he fast enough to stop him from killing her. Spider-Man replies that he is not, but he pulls out his gun. May begged him not to shoot, but Peter remembers the body of his uncle's death, and looking at the man who killed him, he fired his gun, killing the Vulture. May looked at Spider-Man in horror. She told him that he shot an unarmed man, but Spider-Man tried to reason with her, saying that the Vulture was going to kill her. But May stated that he could have used his webbing to stop him. May begins to tell Spider-Man that the papers were right about him, that he was nothing but a killer, thinking that he was above the law. She asked Spider-Man to hand over the gun, but Spider-Man looked at the dead body of the Vulture and said sorry to May and left. Spider-Man arrived at one of the Goblin's hideout. He saw Osborn threatening Felicia and Jonah. He stormed in, fighting Osborn's men. In the chaos, Kraven was about to attack Spider-Man, but he kicked him into a glass cage filled with the same spiders that had transformed him. Kraven screamed, and then went silent. In a final confrontation underground, Peter fought Osborn face to face. They unmasked one another, with Spider-Man ripping Osborn's skin to reveal his true face. With the Goblin holding tight onto Peter's hand and gun, he urged Peter to pull the trigger, giving him the chance to be a hero. But Peter heard May's voice again and said no, and Peter let go of the gun, telling the Goblin that he would stand trial for his crimes. The Goblin tried to fire Peter's gun, but Peter's webbing had jammed the barrel. The gun backfired. As he fled, the same swarm of spiders attacked Osborn using the body of Kraven, dragging him into the dark. The Goblin was gone. with his empire in ruins and the corrupt exposed, New York had changed a little. Aunt May still fought for justice, but Peter no longer protested from the sidelines. He had become its protector, not of the law, but of the people. That was the origins of Spider-Man Noir, but his story is far from over. Thanks for watching. If you love multiverse stories, subscribe for new videos every week. Right here on Pages of the Multiverse.